it's difficult to look around the room and see so many faces of people that I'm not so familiar with when we make a bris, but I really appreciate everyone coming, really appreciate you joining in our simcha. Just a few thank yous. First of all, a massive thank you has to go, first of all, to my parents-in-law, David and Ruth. Words don't really do it justice. Chazal, when they created the Matfeah Tefillah, Lahavdil, they told us there are certain things you can say in your praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and sometimes when you say too much, you miss things out. I don't want to say too much, but since we've arrived in Australia only a few months ago, your home has been completely open to us. You've done everything for us. We've stayed with you for a very long time. We haven't lifted a finger for this bris. We pretty much haven't cooked for the last week. You've done more than everything for us. And I have to say, pre-birth, post-birth, the whole way through, everything that you've done for us is so much appreciated. And I don't want to say any more than that, but words don't really do it justice. So thank you so much for opening your home to us in so many ways and for having us here. While we're in the family, Oliver, Ramona, and Sarah and Andrew, thank you for all your support also since we've arrived and since the bris, and for all of you, since the birth, and for all of your offers of support and your help. It's really wonderful to be able to share simcha with you. To my dad, you've missed the family wedding in London. My first cousin got married on Monday night. My father missed the wedding in London. Not entirely unlike my father-in-law. Significant expense and time to come here just for a few days. Absolutely delighted that you're here. And I was actually thinking last night, the first parasha that we learned together, Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz Meguray Aviv be'eretz Kanaan, Eilat Yaakov Yosef, but we named the baby obviously Yaakov, and it is no coincidence. So the Masorah comes through from father to son, and it is wonderful to have you here, especially with the name that we've chosen, and I'll come on to that in a minute. To Natalie, who's probably not in the room, and again, words don't really do it justice, but I just want to say that I never really understood what Sur Yisrael, when we talk about Sur Yisrael in praise, again, Lahavdil, in praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what does it mean, the rock? I grew up never understanding what that meant till we arrived in Australia, and the ground started to shake for me a little bit. Sur of my family, Natalie, has been an absolute rock for me and for our children. She adores the children and they absolutely love her, and she can think of nothing better to do with her time than to bring them up. And I wish her, as I go back to work next week, every best of luck to look after three young children. But you've been absolutely incredible throughout the last 6 or 7 years that we've been together, and I wish you only health and happiness with these children, and you should always be strong and able to deal with them even when you're absolutely exhausted. Finally, just coming on to the baby, Yaakov Eliyahu. So it's difficult to write anything because last night at about 8 o'clock the name was actually a different name, and then we made a change. But Eliyahu is not a difficult one for me. Eliyahu is of course Eliyahu Navi, Eliyahu Malach HaBrit, but of course my grandfather, my father's father, was Eliyahu, just Eliyahu, and he was born in Mashhad in Iran, and he lived as a secret Jew there with his family, and he travelled across the world through India and Palestine, which became Israel, and then to London to give his sons a Torah education. He had 4 sons, and again, as I said, it's quite difficult to look at a room of people when you're making a simcha and to not really recognise as many faces as perhaps one would in one's home country. And Rashi, my father-in-law, reminded me, Rashi says in Parashat Lech Lecha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Abraham 3 brachot when he told him Lech Lecha. He told him, he gave him 3 brachot because there are 3 things that a person loses when he travels, when he moves across the world, or when he moves to a different place, and one of them is Shem. And I think Shem means that no one really knows where you come from, no one knows who your family are. And just to let you know, my grandfather had 4 sons, well, he's no longer with us, but he has 4 sons. And those 4 sons, so far he has 18 grandchildren, and so far 40, and please God, many more great-grandchildren. And so far everyone is Shomer Torah Mitzvah. It's an incredible legacy, and many more please God to come, with many young grandchildren yet to get married, and we're delighted to be able to use the name Eliyahu for our son. Yaakov, of course, Yaakov Avinu. We chose the name because Chazal tell us that the Avot had different midot. Abraham was the midot of Chesed. That means he was outgoing. His Avodat Hashem manifested in an outgoing love of the Jewish people of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We know that he smashed the idols. He went out to bring people closer to Torah and Mitzvot. He wasn't scared to travel. He wasn't scared to embrace people, to engage with the world. Yitzchak Avinu was the opposite. He was the midah of Gevurah. That means he was internal. Yitzchak Avinu never left Eretz Yisrael. Yitzchak Avinu was offered as a sacrifice. He was an Olah Tamima. He wasn't allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael, according to Chazal. In many ways, he never really returned from the Akedat Yitzchak. He never really came back. He wasn't really able to engage with his son Esav. He wasn't able to understand him. He was able to be fooled by his son Yaakov. Yitzchak Avinu was up there, somewhere in between us and the angels. Chazal say that the angels cried into his eyes at the Akedah. Yitzchak Avinu was almost part man and part not really with us. And Yitzchak Avinu is the midah of Gevurah, completely the opposite of his father Abraham. And interestingly, these 2 midot, because they were extremes, as the Rambam says, the extremes are never ideal, and the extreme, of course, they're meant for us, a message for the Avot. We need the strength from those 2 midot. But the midot of them being at the extremes meant that each one had a son who was off the derech, or who was not from. Yet Abraham had Yishmael, and Yitzchak had Esau. Whereas Yaakov Avinu was able to take the two midot of his father and his grandfather and to bring them together in the middle of Tiferet or Emet. He was the one who was able to Mishalev. He brought them together, and he found the perfect medium between the two. And not just in that area of his life, and that's why all of his children, all of his children were Shomai Torah and Mitzvah, and he was the founder of the Jewish people, ultimately. But one other thing is that he not only was he able to bring things together between the middle of his father and his grandfather, but when his name was changed, Yaakov Avinu was called Yaakov Avinu because he was Yado Chazet Ba'akevei Sav. He was holding onto his brother's heel. He understood when he needed to recede, when the Jewish people needed to be on the back foot, and when they needed to be Israel. He was given the name Israel because Hashem said to him, or the angel said to him, you've been able to fight with angels. You've been able to fight with superhuman beings, not with just man, but also with angels, with gods, as it were. And that's why. But after Yaakov Avinu's name changed, he wasn't just called Yaakov anymore. His name, unlike everyone else in Tanakh who had their name changed, his name was Yisrael and Yaakov. Yisrael and Yaakov went back and forth. Not like Avraham who became Abraham, or Sarah who became Sarah, or Shel who became Yeshua. His name continued to be Yaakov and Yisrael because he knew not just how to bring together the middle of his father and his grandfather, but he also understood how to develop the medium between Yaakov and Yisrael, when to be on the back foot and when to be first foot forward, when to be fighting with angels and when to be receding into the background and being quiet and keeping the peace, as it were. And so on a double level, we see a perfect balance for Yaakov Avinu, and we wish our bracha to our son, of course, Yaakov Eliyahu, is that he should always be able to, in life to tread the perfect path and create the perfect balance and the perfect equilibrium between himself and his peers, between himself and his family and his community and his people, and ultimately between himself and Kadosh Baruch Hu. And he should always be an asset to himself, to his family, to his community, and ultimately to his people and to Kadosh Baruch Hu. Thank you all for coming. Mazal tov.